So,
Well, first you gotta tell me that story though.
all right, I'll tell you the story first. So the this was 2 years ago. I had custom made an axe throwing trailer that doubled as a transport trailer for us going to big trade shows for Lawn Buddy, and I bought it as like a flatbed trailer, and I took it into a buddy's shop and I fabricated it to. It was a full 8 foot long, 5.5 foot wide axe throwing trailer, and double axle, and built it from the ground up, and it all folded down, kind of origami style, to where it was all nice and flush. I took it on one trip from here to Louisville, Kentucky, and when I came back, I parked the trailer in our lot, and I'm a rather suspicious man, so I also had a GPS unit attached to it when I was building it, and within 4 hours, it was stolen from the parking lot, and so
An empty lot.
an empty lot. And so I came. Actually, I was suspicious, and I was like, "I'm gonna go check on the trailer." And I went and I checked on the trailer that evening, and it was gone. And sorry, that morning, and it was gone. And I was like, "I gotta go check the tag and see where it's at." And I thought there was an error. I thought that when I saw it, it was pinging a block away from the location. I was like, "Oh no, it must have fallen off when I was driving the trailer back from the trade show." And keep in mind, the trailer was loaded down, so it had all my tools, all the company's TVs, like a bunch of stuff we had rented was all on this trailer. And someone had hooked and towed it off, which is what happens to a lot of these landscapers. And it wasn't pinging a wrong location. And so luckily, my wife wasn't working, and she came with me, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to go down this dirt road where my trailer's pinging. Would you mind parking in this large parking lot?" And I said, "Just tell me who's coming down the road, and I'll keep you on the phone." And so I'm driving down looking, and it starts to rain, and I look over to the left, and there's someone with a fire going in their front yard. And I look, and they're burning Lawn Buddy signs in the front yard. And I see like a bunch of our equipment across their front
You,
lawn.
you had some enemies or what?
I no, they so it gets worse. So I'm there, and I'm like, "Oh snap, they're burning all my stuff." And so I parked. I was probably 3 houses down. I parked on the opposite side so I could see what they were doing. And I called the police, and I said, "Hey, our trailer was stolen," which I had already filed a police report earlier that morning. And I said, "I found where it's at. They're burning my stuff in their front yard." And they said, "Oh, just stay there. We're sending units." Um, 20 minutes goes by, 30 minutes goes by, 40 minutes go by, and there's no one there. And I was just getting ready to call again, and this lady, maybe mid-30s, like super strewn out, you could tell she was on drugs, comes running out in the street because she had seen me, and started yelling, "What am I doing here?" And so I was like, "Well, I've lost the element of surprise." And so she starts running back into her house, and so I take my truck and I pin them into their driveway so they can't get out. Yeah.
You're not kidding. This is getting
Yeah,
worse.
yeah. It keeps going. So I pin them into their driveway, and I call the cops again. I said, "Hey, they know I'm here," and I pinned them into their driveway so they can't leave. And they said, "Okay, yeah, we're still sending units. They're on their way." So I called my wife again. I said, "Hey, I really need to know who's coming up and down this road." And she's on the phone with me. And maybe 10 minutes later, she says, "There's a maroon SUV, and it's like going 60 down this back road towards you." And sure enough, it blows past me, flips a U-turn, and starts driving um, straight at me. And by that time, I was concealed carrying appendix, which we'll get into here in a second. But I drew my pistol, and I told Sonia, I said, "Call the cops." And I hung up. And I said, "Call the cops, tell them I've drawn my weapon." And I hung up. She calls the police. Um, and right before they get to the front of my truck, their house where they were burning everything. There's this like broken fence line and a little ditch that leads to where their little bonfire of Lawn Buddy stuff is going on. Right before they get to the front of my truck, they jump the borrow ditch into their front yard, and their doors fly open. And so I open my truck door, and I get in between the between the door frame and the A-frame of the pickup truck. And I'm just like, well, here we go. And out hops this old lady and a guy with his leg in a cast and crutches. And they start hobbling into the house as fast as they can. And I'm like, well, that escalated quickly. That was not what I was expecting to come out of this car. And so they go in, and literally 60 seconds later, the cops pull up. A single unit shows up. And I tell them what's happened and what's going on, and they say, okay, stay in your truck and we'll go in. And simultaneously, that same old lady comes out with 2 cats in her hands and tries telling them, we've been here this entire time. This guy he's lying to you. No one's in this house. Anyways, they finally investigate. They get a warrant. They go in. Half of my stuff is there. They had chopped up the frame of my trailer, and that's what was there, was all the things they had chopped up in the back, because it was a chop shop. Why we're there, they couldn't get additional units to respond. They asked me to walk the property with them to identify it. While we're going through the home, a dude on the couch is ODing, and they call the fire department and the ambulance, come and give him Narcan. He refuses transport from there, and he just chills out on the couch. And the lady who came out in the middle of the street, that's like her boyfriend's house, and she's saying she has nothing to do with it. And this is where, because they were like, hey, yeah. And so like and there was so much stuff there. There was mowers, there was a bunch of lawn care equipment, there were trailers. They had stolen like 100 chairs from Lowe's that was still wrapped with the Lowe's logos on it. And the other half of my trailer had all my rented equipment, had all my TVs, all the expensive stuff, all my tools, my Milwaukee tools they took. And the police were like, hey, if she doesn't give us an address, we can put out like a bolo on your equipment, but that's it. And so I asked him if I could speak to the lady for like 60 seconds, just with her and I and the police, without the other, because there was 3 or 4 other dudes that were there. And they say yes. They say I can speak to her alone with the officers. And I knew that she was already terrified and she was scared, and she wasn't telling me. She kept saying, I don't know nobody. I don't know nobody that has your trailer. And so she came over, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, and I'm making this shorter, but I essentially said, I know you don't know nobody, but tell nobody my attorneys are Martin Pringle, and you are somebody, and I'm going to sue you until you have nothing left, if you don't give me this address. And she walked in the house and came back out and gave the cops an address. And so the story continues. They tell me I can't go.
Switch from bad to worse.
Yeah, it keeps getting worse. They tell me I can't go, and so to stay at my office, and they'll call me when they found my trailer. And they go down there, and they about an hour later they call me and say, hey, we have good news. Your trailer's in the driveway. You can come pick it up. And I said, well, what about the rest of the stuff? I said, well, we don't know where it's at. And so I drive down there. Sure enough, it's in downtown Wichita, really, really bad neighborhood. And the trailer was in the driveway, all cut up, but it was still on it was basically back to how I bought it. They turned it back into a flatbed trailer. And I get down there, and they say, well, you can hook up your trailer and leave. And I said, well, what about the rest of the stuff? Have you looked at it? It said, we've been trying to knock on the door. There's someone in there. They put a mattress up against the door, and we can see them, but we can't get a warrant to get them to come out. I said, well, my trailer's right here. And they said, yeah, but because it's not in their backyard, you don't need a warrant to get it. You can just leave. The DA is not going to give us a warrant. And I said, well, have you looked in their backyard? Because it's wide open. And they said, no, we can't do that. And we can't tell you not to do that, though. So if you happen to see your stuff, let us know. And so I go up, I stand on the trailer, and all my stuff is in the backyard. Like everything, all the trusses, the TVs, everything but my tools I could see in the backyard. And so I went and I told them that, and they reported it to the DA, and they said there was no way for me to positively identify that it was my equipment in their backyard, and they weren't going to give me a warrant. And by this time I'd spent a decent amount of time with the officers, and they essentially told me, like, hey, we have to sit in our cruisers and continue filing this report. They're turning it down for this reason. If somehow you happen to fall into proof that that is yours while we're filing our report, please let us know, and we'll submit it. And so I I broke into their backyard and and got the proof they needed. But what's crazy is when I broke, I don't know,
When you got
I
in their
stumbled into
backyard.
their
Yeah.
backyard, they had an AR leaned up against the garage door, and I was like, oh, this is even more interesting. And so, anyways, I find all the stuff. The dude is inside because he's got lights on. By this time, it's like 7, so it's dark. He's got lights on, but no one's home. And so, long story short, I go in, I identify the equipment. The DA finally issues the warrant for me to seize my assets, but no one can help me. So I'm in the backyard shoving all this stuff back onto my trailer to hook and tow back, and finally do it. And then to accelerate the story even more, I get a investigator from Wichita Police Department assigned to my case. He goes down 2 weeks later to like start building a case against this guy because I'm still missing my tools, my beloved Milwaukee tools, which I never recovered.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've been gone.
yeah, for a long time. And so he goes in to investigate, knocks on the door. A girl answers in a Lawn Buddy t-shirt because they had stolen like boxes and boxes of our swag. And he says, "Do you know whose company that is that's on your shirt?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Well, it's actually a company who I'm assisting in an investigation for stolen items." And anyway, he asked to see if her boyfriend's home, and he was murdered in an alley, like 2 days before he had gotten there. Someone ran him over, and he was trying to get access to the garage because there had been reports that a lot of people had been going in and out of the garage. And she told him that when he died, he had the garage door remote in his pocket, which was destroyed, and so she couldn't even get into the garage, and so they had to drop the case.
Dude,
So,
that sounds like the plot to a comedy movie,
oh yeah,
man.
it was horrible and it was crazy. We literally could have had a all hands like first responder baseball tournament because we had every unit or every department imaginable that had showed up. But that is a little snippet of what happens to these guys and gals trailers and equipment all the time, like ridiculously all the